Welcome to Trek Table, your Sunday weekly podcast holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown,
women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and your allies.
Hey, I'm your host, Allison or Dela.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Claudia.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Marie.
Hi, I'm your co-host, Maya.
We're all so excited for you to join us for this Talk today with the women of color here on the Trek Table. Love to our ally, Arthur, who's not on the episode today. But welcome to everybody who's watching us, recorded in front of our live digital studio audience on twitch.tv/outpost13 in the chat, and our friends watching on outpost13.org, or maybe you're listening on our audio podcast archives.
Our opening track for this episode is titled Chicana Skies by the band Quetzal off of their album Quetzal. You'll be hearing several tracks by Quetzal throughout this episode of the Trek Table. Follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
Yes, so welcome to episode 5 of the Trek Table. I'm your host and show creator, Allison Ordela. Thanks so much for tuning in and showing up for a conversation with women of color about Star Trek. We're so excited to sit down today and talk about episode 4 of Star Trek Discovery, season 1, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cries. So today, just to prep, I'm going to do a little spoilery in the intro, talking about episode 4, a little bit of Captain Lorca. This joke is for the theater heads. Are we getting into the house of Bernarda Discovery? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see as we get into the show. Burnham's on her accountability journey. The Klingons continue to try and unite under the light of their martyr T'Kuvma. And Stamets in that Spore drive got to try. And ooh, let's not forget Kitty the Ripper. So we want to say welcome back to Maya. Thanks for being back with us, and welcome to all who enter. Whether you're a newbie or you were raised in a Star Trekking family, welcome. Let's build this space together.
Whether you use Trek Table as your nerdy exploration or even part of your weekly self-care ritual, Trek Table is a weekly space to put down the world for a second and come into the Trek space.
It is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, women of color to be able to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the Star Trek multiverse.
Trek Table is also a place for our allies to come engage and explore as well. And this is an opportunity for you all as allies, or us internally as allies, to hold space and focus on the insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we are all here, we remind you that we strive to create an environment of mutual respect and listening. We know that we are going to disagree passionately, but there's enough hate out there in the world. We don't need that here. Please keep your phasers on stun.
All right, so with all that, we want to welcome you to our Sunday ritual. Go ahead and plant your feet flat on the floor. And go ahead and take a breath in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Yes. So welcome all. So let's connect and see who's at the table today. Trek Table assembled. Can I ask you to go ahead, share your name, your pronouns, any access check-in, and who or what are you holding Trek space for? Marie Wren, can I ask you to go first?
Of course. Hi, Marie or Marie Wren here. I use she, her pronouns. Access check-in. I thought I didn't hear helicopters today, and I did just like 10 minutes ago. So still the helicopters, if you hear those, in my audio feed. And today I'm holding Trek space for pacifist scientists like Stamets who don't want their research or developments to be used for war purposes.
Thank you. Claudia, can I invite you to check in? How are you today?
Hey, hi, hello everyone. It's my birthday, sort of. It's not really February 29th, but apparently I am a year older, so that's a fun thing. My name is Claudia Alec, gender pronouns they, their, she, hers. You can use those interchangeably. And my access check-in today is I'm having some allergies going on, so I've got a big cup of tea, and I also will have water. And just please forgive me if if I'm coughing at all during the broadcast. I also have a muscle disorder, so if you see me go like this, I am not having an opinion about Star Trek. Most likely, I'm having a reaction to my body. Other than that, all of my access needs are met, and I'm holding Trek space. I am holding Trek space for the essential workers. like the tardigrade, those that we cannot get anywhere without them.
Thank you, Claudia, and happy birthday. We're so excited you're here with us on your birthday. So thank you. Welcome back, Maya. How are you? Who or what are you holding Trek Space for?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. It was great to have a break, and it gives me the energy to be ready to come back into this conversation. My pronouns are she, her, and my access needs. I have a little arthritis, so I need to move around. And also, if you hear any growling or grumbling, it usually isn't me. It's my coworker, Chorizo. And I am holding check space for also similarly the anxiety and awe around science and healing as we learn how to figure out how to battle our current panaderia or pandemic, as some people also call it.
Awesome. And I am Dela. My pronouns are she, he, they, and Dela. And I will acknowledge I'm going to swiggle a little in my chair. I look forward to our dance break later. But other than that, all of my access needs are met. I will acknowledge that I'm holding Trek Space for Burnham and Stamets. And similar to what other friends have shared, all the scientists and artists whose work may have been incorporated into war efforts when that's not what the artist or the scientist intended. So I want to hold space for all of that. All right, so friends in the Twitch chat, we want to say welcome. Hi to I Effing Love Whiskey. We're so happy that you're here. Great to see folks. Super excited. Who or what are you holding Trek Space for today on Sunday, February 28th, 2021? That is our star date. And as we head into this musical break, go ahead and think about that. Drop that in the chat as you enjoyed 20 Pesos by the band Quetzal. All right, so we're coming back. We're going to talk about this week's show. This week on the show on Star Trek, on Trek Table, we're going to talk about Star Trek Discovery, Episode 4 of Season 1, Butcher's Knife, Care Not for the Lamb's Cries. Who's the lamb? Who's the butcher? Let's get into that. So we'll explore this episode in a couple of different ways. We're going to do Popcorn Recap, one of our favorite news segments, and Maya's going to join us today for the first time. Marie has questions, so we're going to get to those. Claudia's raising Trek Table questions, and Claudia's going to host Discovery Design for us today. Maya's back with Space Runway. I'll jump into a little bit of Thematix with the team, and we have officially added Spoiler Zone to our show, so we're super excited for that. Some really great signal boosts coming up, and then final thoughts and gratitude.
So if you're like me and you're watching Discovery for the first time and don't want to suffer the spoilers because you're watching Discovery for the first time, no worries. Our Trek Table team is going to be spending most of this show only with spoilers of up to Episode 4 of Star Trek Discovery Season 1. For folks who've seen all the way through to the end of Season 3, you will get a special treat in our spoiler zone.
Yes. So thank you, Marie. So let's take a second for this episode and just as we get into this episode, here's what we're holding space for. We're holding space for pacifist scientists like Stamets who don't want their research used for war purposes, for essential workers like the tardigrade who we can't get to places or have things happen without them. We want to hold space for folks who are feeling anxiety about both science and healing in this time of pandemic. And we're holding Trek space for artists and scientists who feel like their work is being used in efforts that they did not intend. So yes, we're so happy to hold all of that Trek space, and we'll add some more from what we hear in the chat shortly. But I just want to invite everybody one last time. Let's jump into the show. But before we do, let's ground ourselves in those Trek space things. Go ahead and take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I acknowledge that for some folks listening in the audio, hearing other folks breathe in and breathe out might be a new thing for you. Thank you for jumping into that newness.
And now we get to go into our Trek Table questions, which will be posed to the Trek Table ascended here in the voice and video, and those participating in twitch.tv/outpost13 chat. Question number 1 is, what job would you want to do on the Starfleet Discovery ship, and why? you the first question, which was, what is Trek Table question number 1? What job would you want to do on the Starfleet Discovery ship and why? I believe I will start with Dela. Dela, what is the job you would be doing on this ship?
I would want to be a person who gets to attend to the Spore forest. I think that's where I would be in my happiest place. So if whatever I need to do to get my breathalyzer passing self into a doorway so that I could hang out with the spores, that's where I'd be.
I can totally see you out there tending to the mushrooms or whatever. That's beautiful. Marie, how about you? What job would you be doing on Discovery?
I think I still really love admin so much that I would love to be on one of the covert science mission jobs and hopefully as far away from Lorca as possible.
I can 100% see you with those pads, passing them around, doing things. Yes. I feel like, well, actually, Maya, what's the job you would want to do?
I was trying to figure out what the actual jobs were, but, I'm thinking bartender, holodeck lounger, the people that kind of dress up in the outfits to enact what you're doing when you want to do in the holodeck. But if I had to have a more, systems kind of ship, I want to be an engineer, a tinkerer. I think my whole family of engineers would love that I finally jumped into that. So I like to tinker.
Yes, Maya, get out of my head. I 100% want a low stakes job too. I will be programming holodecks for folks, well, this is Discovery. They don't have holodecks, so I'll be serving drinks, helping out with maybe giving those haircuts. Maybe I could be doing folks' lineups because they got to have somebody up in there being a space barber. I love it. Well, that was Trek Table question number 1. Oh, but actually, wait a second. Do we have anybody from the chat?
We do. I could jump in here. I effing love whiskey says, first they were like, yes, I want to scan things that we encounter as my job. But then after Maya said bartender, I effing love whiskey, which is one of the shows here on Outpost 13. Of course, y'all are going to be the bartenders. And you're probably going to curate an amazing bourbon from Bajor or something like that. I just want to alliterate. So yes. Yes.
Well, that was Trek Table question number 1.
Amazing. So if you, we invite you to like and subscribe to Trek Table on Instagram at Trek Table or on Twitter at Trek Table 1. Please feel to join our convos, hashtag Trek Table, hashtag BIBWOC, hashtag Star Trek Discovery. And we just heard a little bit of Matanzas by the band Quetzal. And with that, we know that means it is time for Popcorn Recap. The game is simple. We have 2 minutes to share chunklets of plot from this week's episode.
Yes, we'll talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 4, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. Story and teleplay by Jesse Alexander and Aaron Eli Colate, and directed by Olatunde Onsunsami.
Yeah, so we hope that this will be fun for you, as funny as it might be for us, because Marie, Ren, and Maya are newbies. Claudia was raised in a trekking house, and I love minutia. So let's see that in 2 minutes.
Okay, so Brandon, please set the timer for 2 minutes. Episode 4 in 2 minutes. On the clock. Can we get it done?
Incoming transmission.
All right, so Tilly gets the mail from the depot, and she comes back into Burnham's room, and Burnham's just synthesized a new uniform and standing there in her bathrobe like, I don't even know. Then Tilly's like, oh, here's a box. It happens to be the last will and testament. Burnham's not ready to deal with it, of Captain Georgiou, so she shoves it under her bed and then goes to the turbolift because she gets called to the bridge, and there's Saru.
And Saru's like, what are you doing here? And she's just like, I got invited to stay here. What? And then she goes and the captain's like, come to my captain's lab, and it's full of alien specimens and weapons, and it's creepy. But the tardigrade is in there, and he's like, hey, I want you to weaponize this tardigrade. He wants you to weaponize it.
And then we meet up with the Klingons 6 months after T'Kuvma's ship was disabled, and Voke is doing Klingon art, trying to trace equipment that he could use to get the ship running again.
And Admiral Cornwall orders Discovery to the dilithium mining colony on Corvan 2. Looks like there's mining. I want to know more about this, but is under Klingon attack. Lorca tells Starfleet he is sure that he can use the Spore drive to save them because, he's a big old badass and he's ready to go to war for any reason. And Stamets says this is a bad idea.
House Cole shows up on the Klingon side. He's trying to help figure out what to do. They have unique cloaking technology, and says that he wants to serve House T'Kuvma.
Well, actually, it's more like he's like, "Yo, T'Kuvma, would you serve us and help us save the war?" And they're like, and he's like, "I guess we can. We're starving to death, but I guess we will." All right, I'm sorry, I just did your part. Okay, so then Stamets, he hurts his nose for some reason. They try to fly, but it doesn't work good, and he gets a bloody nose. But then he goes to the sick bay, and that's where we meet Culber.
Didn't get through very many.
No, we actually did better in our warm-up today. So, okay, so that is our time, but we still want to get through most of this recap. So each person gets one more thing to say. Claudia, do you want to start this, or since we ended on you, or I can start it?
I know I can do it. So Lorca sends Commander Landry to go keep an eye on Burnham to keep her on track, and she's just like, I know how to make this tardigrade do stuff. I'm gonna gas it, and the tardigrade totally kills her to death.
And then we find ourselves back on the Shenzhou with Vogue and Laurel, and then they're like Klingon flirting, and they find the dilithium that they need for their own ship, and then they come back to T'Kuvma's ship, and Cole is like, "This ship's mine. I got everyone else's loyalty, and you're done."
And Burnham is telling Saru that believes Ripper, the tardigrade, was acting in self-defense and is drawn to the spores, but he's not impressed. He leaves. He's mad. Tilly brings the stolen spores. Burnham crawls into the cage with Ripper and eats, and it's cute.
And Ripper gives Burnham a kiss on the cheek, and then they're able to figure out that Ripper belongs in the Spore Cube, and they're able to go to Corvan 2 and save the lives. And Tilly reports at end of episode that the ship is now talking about Burnham in good ways, and Burnham is ready to open the box, does the biodata unlock, and we see a hologram of Georgiou, last will and testament.
And that is our time. Past our time. So thanks for joining us for Popcorn Recap.
Amazing.
How did I do for my first time?
And thank you, Maya, for joining us this time. For an act-by-act breakdown, we invite you to visit womenatwarp.com. Andy at Women at Warp did this recap for this episode. We'll drop the link in the chat and in the episode notes. And now it's time for...
Marie has questions.
What does this mean?
Marie has questions.
What's happening? She did what? She's from where? She killed who?
So Marie Has Questions is our moment where we get to be able to have questions about Star Trek, especially for someone who's new like me. There's lots going on. Things are really starting to pick up. So we have 2 minutes. I have questions I'm going to ask Dela and Claudia. Thank you for joining me today. And Brandon, go.
Incoming transmission.
Okay, so I am not sure if I fully understand like the tardigrade being able to navigate the Spore network and the Spore drive. And so I'm like, how, like, they're like, oh, look, it's connected. And then that's like all the science we know. Is there more that I should be knowing at this moment?
This is fresh and brand new space science, so I think you got it right. It's working because of the spaciness of it.
And I will say that they say it's a microorganism that here's my guess is it was little, but then because of whatever happened on the Glen, it got big. Because it's really supposed to be that's why Landry says it's micro, even though it's huge, and we still don't understand.
Wait a second. Okay, we're gonna have to talk about this later because I didn't have that understanding.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about this later.
Here's actually my next question. So Stamets says all the biologicals spun out on the Glen. So does that mean does that mean that this is the creation of the Ripper or Kitty that we're calling? And is this also how Stamets is talking about how the crew of the Glen looked when they were on it in the last episode and they were all like literally spiraled out?
Yeah, they were spiral nastiness. That was not nice.
Okay.
And he tells Tilly to check that the things on the outside of the hull of the Glen match what happened to the crew. And that was last episode. So, yes, I just want to add that.
Wow. Okay. I didn't catch that part. Okay. There's a bridge crew member with like a blue and metallic striped head.
Yes, Arium.
Okay.
That is crew member Arium.
And is that a species or like a synth or an android or?
At this point in the story, we don't know. We haven't found out, so we'll find out more. I don't want to tell you because that's a spoiler.
Thank you, spoiler protection.
Okay, thanks. Okay, and that is my time. And thank you for joining us for Marie Has Questions.
Oh, well, I just want to thank Marie for not sending us all off to Memory Alpha. Those questions were actually rather contemporary. That was marvelous. So today in the Discovery Design section, we would like to talk about we want to talk about the tardigrade. Like you just jumped up some stuff where I'm like, oh, we need to talk about tardigrades in a deeper way. I think I might have some questions myself. Now, I've been thinking a lot about that phrase, all roads lead to Rome, how the Roman effort and their power was all based on them controlling travel and how people could get in transit, and also controlling the ways people could get resourced and controlling resources. So dilithium, the Klingons in this episode are like, we need some dilithium in order to make our cloak work. The dilithium mine on, CARAVANA 2? It's key to the war effort. If they don't save them, the entire war is lost. So this one moment is huge. And of course, they can't save the dilithium mine without using the Spore drive that, of course, they say they can use. And it's just like, they don't know how to use it. I'm glad they figured that out real quick. Good thing they got Michael Burnham. So the Spore drive is the key to all the power. And just thank you for asking some questions about this Spore drive. I have questions. Can we start with the tardigrade? What is the story with this tardigrade? What is a tardigrade? Anybody know?
Well, I looked it up, and I think Marie was telling me that that it was it's an actual thing in our world, not only in Discovery's world, and it's known colloquially as a water bear, a little water bear, or a moss piglet. And it's a phylum of an 8-legged segment micro animal. So there's micro animals everywhere, and we live among them.
And Dela, were you suggesting that this it started off as a micro on the other ship, and then like whatever experiment they did made it macro?
Yeah, so it's not clear, and I realized in my answers to Marie Has Questions, we don't quite understand how, if the Glen people got all spiraled out, how this microorganism got big and in the spiral didn't get damaged. So what we learn in this episode is Burnham says it was hiding in the Spore containment in the hull of the Glen. And then they put it in the Spore cube because they put a force field around it. So it was already big. They had already figured it out. But you are right in that we haven't heard the full flesh out of how it went from being little to being big.
Yeah, I'm realizing that I had an entire headcanon thing where it was a gigantic water bear and it just wandered onto the ship because it smelled spores. And that makes less sense than your explanation. So I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me a deep tardigrade moment.
And Can I add that for folks, there's a really great short Treks episode where it's an animated episode and it's about the tardigrade and the dots. So anybody who wants to see a fun little story about the tardigrade and the dots, I would recommend doing a short jaunt in your CBS All Access to, or what will become Paramount Plus access to the short Treks about the tardigrade.
And can I say, in terms of design, I don't know if I've ever noticed the captain's war room or the captain having a room full of weapons and that being a thing. This feels a little brand new for Star Trek, but putting that to the side, it had the tardigrade in there. Am I recalling this correctly, that the tardigrade was being held in his office?
Yes, and in the background, not only when I remember when Burnham goes in there and Landry's in there, or in the background I see like trays of stuff, and so I was thinking, like, is that experiments on animals? And I know at one point we were talking about tribbles. I could swear there was like a dissected tribble, which is it seems like there's way more that would be inside one. Maybe I'm just making that up, but there's trays there, so I felt like there's something happening. And there's also a cabinet with like skeletons of animals, so you can see it in the background of the image that we're seeing right now. There's like a skull, and then I think the tray is right next to that sort of box of skeletons.
Okay, for all of those listening in the podcast, every single one of us opened our mouths so wide in a shocked and horrified expression when you mentioned the poor tribbles.
I think I might be making that up, but because we thought we saw a tribble in his other office, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why the tribbles are no longer an issue. That it was not a concern. That we didn't need to be concerned about the tribble being on the ship because Lorca was just going to cut it up anyway. Oh my gosh. I was also thinking about like the war room in general, right? Because everything is on display, and it seems like this is almost like an altar to weapons, but then it's also like a functioning weapons room because later we saw Landry just walk right in, grab a gun off of the wall, and then like, I'm gonna get that claw off of this tardigrade, and I was like, wait, you don't need like special clearance to like access any of this stuff. I mean, yes, head of tactics, security, that kind of clearance, but like, I was like, what kind of gun is that? I don't know.
Well, to me, it said that they must have like a close relationship where she could just walk in and take a weapon. The last thing I wanted to reflect upon, because I feel like we could talk about the Black Alert and all of this stuff for a while, but I just want to reflect a little bit more on the tardigrade and like the way. Well, actually, in our last moments, I'm going to allow us to popcorn. Are there any final tardigrade or Black Alert reflections or thoughts?
I'll go, and I shared this with us as a table when we prepped. I had a very particular physical reaction to watching the tardigrade in the machine and the way in which that, water bear body, that moss piglet body is round and thick in the middle and then getting pressed. And then I don't want to be too vivid, but like as a bigger bodied woman with breasts, I literally clenched my chest when the poor tardigrade got I just felt like it got squeezed on. We're showing some visuals in the show right now of the tardigrade in the actual spore cube as they start to go to Black Alert. And when it gets harnessed up and the way it cries and just how it's being pulled on, it just felt too reminiscent of brown and black bodies being put in experiments for somebody's purpose to find some kind of war better. So I was not expecting to feel so connected to this thing that I was scared of last episode. So I'll just add that.
And we have somebody from the audience that was reflecting on why did Landry need to get Ripper's claw at the time that she forced the issue? Because how's a claw going to help them get to CARAVANA, a dilithium planet? There was some real narrow-minded thinking about, we just got to make this this thing give us something. Jedi Brand says dude was eating space sushi, calamari.
Yeah, I felt like she picked up that thing to slice she wanted to be able to use the claw because it could rip up Klingons, but then she just throws it on the tray at the end, and all heck breaks loose.
This is
And-
what happens when you're wasteful. Yes.
And
Well,
I'll just
this
say that
was-
someone
go ahead.
sees that and Luz Vaminda in the Twitch chat is saying it reminds her of going to get a mammogram, what was happening to the tardigrade.
Oh my
So-
God, squishing boobies. No,
Oh,
why
wow.
haven't they created something better for that yet?
Thank you, Lovey Mendes, because I'm now having this incredible moment of yes. Oh, they might have looked at some mammogram machines to see how that worked. Oh dear. Well, my friends, that is our time. I can't wait to share more insights on Discovery Design next week. But for now, please join our mailing list by visiting TrekTablePodcast.com so that you can get all of our updates and be entered to win a Trek Table t-shirt and invites to our after chat.
Yes, and as we head into musical break, this next musical break, I want to voice for Claudia our Trek Table question number 2. What was your favorite visual moment in the episode?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
Hello, welcome back. So, Trek Table question number 2. What was your favorite visual moment in this episode? Let's see. Who would we like to start with? Maya. Maya, what was your favorite visual moment in the episode?
I mean, there's a lot of things happening in this episode, but honestly, the earnest look on Tilly's face when she's like, I got your mail. And just that in the room, and also when Burnham is looking at herself in the mirror, the 2 Burnhams right before that she walks in on.
Marie, how about you?
My favorite visual moment, or at least the one that like still lives with me right now, is just the cut to the upside down Vogue in a spacesuit, just like the head, the metal, all the metal in the space. And so I was like, dang, this is amazing.
I have to say, a lot of my favorite moments are just actors giving me incredibly like good face acting. And so I think my favorite visual moment wasn't special effects. It was actually before she said I'm sorry, like the moment where Michael's like feeling bad about what they've done with this tardigrade. How about you, Dela?
I will say my favorite visual moment was when Burnham convinced Stamets to release the tardigrade into the spore forest, and you could see the detail of the tardigrade kind of climbing on the rails. It felt like the tardigrade got to go to their version of Disneyland, but they were also the ride. They weren't just in line for the ride. They were like saying hi to their friends, and then they were ready to be the ride. So just that visual, and it's really a 2-shot of them stare. I mean, I could see it in my mind because I paused it and looked at it for a little while. Just because as I said, I wanted to be the spore tender. So I do relate to Stamets saying, "Hey, I want to talk to the mushrooms." That was my favorite visual moment.
All right. Well, and that was, well, actually, here, let me lift up something from our chat. We have someone who shared that they're a softie and they like the squishy moment when Burnham sees the hologram of Philippa Georgiou. Oh, yes. Well, that was Trek Table question number 2. And now is the very serious time in our ritual where we invite everyone to move around in your seats and screens because it's time for our Trek Table dance break. Yes, it's time for Space Runway!
We're going to talk about some of the eye-catching looks from function to fashion in the 23rd century. Space Runway. Welcome to Space Runway this week. And we are doing some of the highlights from Season 1, Episode 4. We have 10 looks today. And our first look is previously on Discovery, jumpsuit.
We missed last week's episode for Space Runway, but let's bring this look back. It did appear on a previously on Discovery, so we're totally not cheating. And I mean, come on, it's not a bad shade of yellow or green. I'm not sure actually what Command Gold really is. It's like that dress that was blue or yellow on the internet that none of us could agree on. Anyway, Burnham is looking great in this jumpsuit and boots.
Yes, and I'm also in honor wearing that command green or yellow or something. Allegedly, I have a sweater this color. And look, number 9, the uniform storm.
Who knew that the inside of a replicator in action looked like a stalactite and stalagmite lightning storm? The camera continues to pan out only to find Burnham in her Starfleet regulation bathrobe as she starts over from the bottom in her navy and silver piped uniform in a drawer. And the computer completes it all by throwing shade, saying that her rank is none.
Look, number 8, tight red bun and cadet brooch.
Chatty and nervous, but proud of her gold-framed cadet brooch, ever-earnest Tilly with her tight red bun stops by the depot for you because she's the best roomie you never knew you wanted and needed. Well, except for that comment about looking smarter than a convict, or that time when they met and Tilly tried to change Burnham's name to something more comfortable. Well, I guess each of you is on a journey.
Look, number 7, mole butt face crew member. Yes, we are paying attention to those 1 second, half a second background crew members. What is that though? What do they do? What do they see? How do they see? Why have I never seen one of these things before? Mole butt face crew member. Look, number 6, Klingon athleisure.
The Klingons are back, still upset but making plans. They looking more comfortable doing it now. L'Rell enters the scene in a silvery, white, long starched tunic with her matching leggings, spiky boots in one, Vok in the maroon, and he's all, I know my name is Vok, and I like to do drawings. While L'Rell is all like, so, now you're an artist now. But their armor is off, their necks are exposed as they map their next moves.
Look, number 5, Klingon boots.
Are they boots? Are they leggings? Are they bleggings?
Look, number 4, Klingon spacesuits. Their necks are protected once again with the most ornate space collar into helmet suit in the galaxy. And here we have Vok. And she found you the dilithium processor. Hello, sweetie. So you tell her how astute she is and wonder, is the mission all a ruse to get you alone and tell you how she wants to be your Klingon behind the Klingon leader? With this, our ship will fly. Look, number 3, space case.
Tilly shows off this gray case as a purse, accessorized with serial numbers and all. This catching piece will have all of the universe asking, what's in the box? Is it a toolbox? Is it a living will and testament from your dead captain sent across time and space? How will you accessorize this case once you finally use your DNA to open the biolock and get reminded of your purpose?
And please, can you open it? Because it's beeping and I'm your roommate and I have to try to sleep. Look, number 2, laundry swag.
Fresh from that battle simulation failure, Head of Security Commander Landry enters the war room with her belt and phaser low on her hips, coming to regulate on Burnham and that tardigrade, because understanding how it feels is not our mission. But Lorca's pressure to push buttons pushes Landry to get blood all over her uniform. Gone too soon, Commander Landry. But we know that last audio from Corvin 2 ripped at our heartstrings too, R.I.P. Landry.
And look, number 1, Wilson Cruz. Finally, the reason I came to Star Trek Discovery and came back to this world. Dear Dr. Hugh Culber, thanks for fixing my face so I can take a closer look at yours. Flirty, yet work-appropriate barbs are traded with Stamets in sickbay, where doctors wear form-fitting white motorcycle jacket tracksuits with silver piping and gray boots to make the entire uniform pop. Nothing gets past the good doctor.
Yes, and if you want to help us hold Trek Space for Women of Color and all of our allies, we invite you to support us on patreon.com/TrekTable.
And that's Space Runway for this week. Fashion, form, function in the future.
All right, so welcome back to the thematic section of Trek Table, where we're going to kind of pull all these threads together and braid it together as we get into the last of these deep dives into the themes, insights, and reflections for this week's episode. So let's talk a little bit about that Burnham accountability journey she's been on. Last episode, she was the infamous mutineer who helped save her team and then was asked to stay on Discovery. This episode, we get to see her settle in. She gets a different uniform, and we see the varying degrees of shade and love that are starting to happen with Saru, with Tilly. We also see a little bit of more of Burnham's work style. We get some intimate panel work with Landry, with Stamets. Marie Wren, I know that you were noticing some stuff about, since you're a newbie in this process, tell me, and you were thinking last week about Burnham's accountability journey and like, how is she going to get back from being this mutineer? And I'm wondering, what did you think this week? How did it go for you? What are you feeling and thinking about Burnham?
Right. Well, I think as an audience member watching the show and watching Burnham in this accountability journey, I think her scientific approach to this assignment that she has with the tardigrade really kind of showed to me why she is part of Starfleet, or was a part of Starfleet to begin with, and also why she was such a good officer to be working with. You know, she has like an anthropology background as well as all of this science background because of the Vulcan Space Academy. But I think, just to see how she treated this research of the tardigrade and was like not going to come in with preconceptions that would alter the way that she studied this creature. And, and I think that the biggest kind of comparison that you can make is how she saw this creature versus how Landry saw this creature, where Landry and Lorca, but that was like, this is a weapon. And she's like, this might not be a weapon. And so, I think that it is really important to try and enter a research project like this, especially as important as this, to not just like view it in one way, and that there are possible other options about it. And so, and because of it, we were able to find the reason why the tardigrade was on the Glen.
Totally. Claudia, Maya, how are you feeling about Burnham's accountability journey? We get Saru a little bit of shade in the threat ganglia.
We're only 4 episodes in, so I just feel like she's the first mutineer. Like, she screwed up so bad. It's gonna take a long time for her to I think Tilly might be getting a little overexcited.
Yeah. Maya, other thoughts?
Yeah, this is true. I think also those snappy barbs between the characters, trying to figure out if, Tilly is super excited. I love how she stutters and stammers because, hey, me too. Love you, Tilly. And also, I also identify with the need to to be a sensitive being and to put up your barriers and say, hey, prove yourself. I'm not sure that we run a whole ship here and now we're being pushed into war. So I think that I think this is what's interesting about Burnham's character is she has feelings, she has lots going on, and sometimes she's motivated by those feelings, but she can also fall back into all her education. And I did feel like there was a little bit of shade thrown at, was it xenoanthropologists? What can you do as a xenoanthropologist, right? So, but she's interdisciplinary, so, she's not just hanging out with cultures that are not her own. She's got a lot of education, and she's asking questions. And for me, that is what I really love about science, and I love about taking kind of a slower. I know we're at pressure here. There's high pressure situations, but just like on like social media and arguments, I really like being able to step back and really put the pieces together, ask the questions, debate with people, and figure out what we can learn so that we can not just wipe out civilizations, wipe out microorganisms and use them willy-nilly, and really be thinking about how we're moving in the world, especially as a Starfleet, who wants to get back to what they really do, and doesn't want to be at war. Except for Gabriel Garcia Lorca, Captain.
You've given him all the real world names that I don't even know that he has in the show.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
But I am curious about who chose that name.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And I think that I've been thinking, and Claudia, I hear what you're saying in terms of we're only 4 episodes in, and really those first two episodes is when we see the sins occur, and now we are in the what happens after. And I'm curious as we keep going, the ways in which Burnham is being set up to be accountable for the things that she's done, and then how she's the one who figures out that Ripper connects to the I just saw the ways that she makes all these pieces fit together, and it made sense to me in terms of her role. And I appreciate Marie and Maya, the way that you're helping us think about how things get set up, and just this question of we see this thing for the scary thing that it is in this one context, but Burnham really asked this other question, and then I agree with Tilly. She's a badass. She put it all on the line and opened the Spore canister and opened the containment field and was like, well, if I made a mistake, I made a mistake, but this is what I think it is. And I do think that it was a little shady that Burnham brought Saru back down to the war room to try to use the ganglia to test and see if the tardigrade was evil. So Burnham has got some growth, I would still agree. But I'm here for this journey. So I know we could talk about Burnham the whole time. I want to, in these last couple of minutes, we've had some chance to talk about the Klingons, and we got to hear about them in Space Runway. We're seeing what's happening with L'Rell and Voq, and now Cole's showing back up. And I'm just wondering, as we think about the Klingons, I know last episode we talked about how Voq is, he's berated or in the first few episodes, he's berated as a son of none. So we get the none between Voq and the none between Burnham. Each of them is some kind of none. And then they're kind of positioned against each other. So I'm wondering, as we continue to see this new part of Klingonship, Claudia, you and I were talking a little bit about how we're also seeing colorism within Klingons. And I'm just wondering, any new thoughts on Klingons this episode, especially when House Cole comes back and things like that?
Yeah, well, some of the things that are consistent about Klingons throughout all of the different iterations of Star Trek are Klingons are racist. Klingons are about Klingons, and they kind of hate anybody who's not a Klingon. But also Klingons are classist. So, they aren't really nice to other Klingons if they don't belong to the right houses. So there's all these, political shenanigans. But also Klingons are, sexist sometimes, but sometimes not. But I think they really are most of the time. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And then in this iteration, I learned that Klingons were also colorist, where if you were a white Klingon, they didn't like you and you were bad and seen as lesser than. And it was as bad as having no house if you were a white Klingon. So this is all just interesting. I think in many ways they write the Klingons to be the worst so that Starfleet can come off in the storytelling as the most open-minded.
Yeah. And I think, and then I just look at L'Rell and I'm like, so this new colorism piece, so is L'Rell not seen as why? Yeah, I think I'm just curious about L'Rell's colorism, because she also tells us she's now House Takuvma, House Mokai is kind of how she rolls out.
Yeah, to me, I read that as being mixed, being forced to choose between houses, and that she used her I forget what it was that her mother gave her to build a bridge. Like, was it her batleth or her something about that? So I see that as when I've worked in diversity spaces, that oftentimes people who are mixed jump out of whatever is expected of it stereotypically of a group, so they're the ones who often are like, look, I never fit in one place or the other, so I'm forced to think outside the box because I can't live inside any boxes. The boxes don't fit for me. So yes, she is astute, and she does seem to be somewhat of an in-between space because of that. And so she pushes Vogue to go back to the scene of the crime, or the place, or the ship that killed his spiritual leader, that he's still guided by, and that they're both guided by.
Definitely. Well, and so that leads me to, like, if we look at what's happening with the Klingons, they're still trying to assemble. Volk has, we see kind of where they land at the end of the episode, where we think L'Rell has double crossed Volk, but she shows back up and she says, I'm going to send you to the matriarchs. And I feel like I just want to start a Star Trek band called L'Rell and the Matriarchs. And I just want to hold it up, and I just want to say L'Rell and the Matriarchs are going to be important later, but we don't know what happens to Volk. So as I make that, I'm going to transition us, because in this last part of, and let's bring it, feel free to add to that, but I also want to add Lorca to this, because I feel like Lorca is very clear in driving the ship and in driving the missions of what we're doing, because we're still at war with the Klingons. That's why Landry says she's got to go in and get the claw, and that's what, Lorca sets all that up. So I've just been thinking a lot about Lorca, and just like, in my mind, he is the butcher in this episode. And I've been thinking, is the lamb the Ripper, Kitty the Ripper, is the lamb Stamets, is the lamb the Klingons, and just all these moments where we see Lorca kind of motivating or manipulating his crew. And so I just wanted to open that up and see folks have any thoughts about Lorca and kind of the house of Gabriel Lorca on the USS Discovery.
I have been wondering, do you think that, or do we think that Lorca completely orchestrated Landry's death and knew that, and probably guessed that Landry would not survive trying to grab the claw from the tardigrade? Because this, right? I mean, yeah, because I feel like Lorca had the information that Burnham has been researching regarding the tardigrade species, and what, yeah. And so I'm just like, I don't know. I think he did it. I think he did it on purpose. I think he knew what was going to happen, and that it would potentially accelerate Burnham's research to figure out something about the tardigrade.
He's definitely an instigator or manipulator, but that's a whole nother level of, like, well, I can, the most loyal to me, I can dispose of her, for my needs. That's rough.
Seriously, this is reminding me, and spoiler alert for the audience for the entire Marvel universe. Apologies. I'm going to spoil other franchises, y'all, when I'm in this conversation. So this is reminding me of the moment of Avengers, when what's his name kicks it, Coulson kicks it, and they're and old eye patch dude is just like, yo, you guys got to get in the game and fight the aliens, because like this one dude liked you a lot and now he's dead. You got to avenge him. That was the same vibe from our captain, being like, you should feel really bad about this, Burnham. Now try to weaponize it.
Yeah, and I was trying to track Landry, because we were all so sad that she left. And I was like, yeah, they had that simulation. And I just want to say the interesting thing about Lorca, and I don't know if anybody else caught it, but that simulation at the top of this episode was all women at stations. So we had Detmer. It was the first time we see a Wosakun sitting at the helm. We had Ariam in the background, and you had Commander Landry on weapons. So when Lorca leaves the bridge simulation with Burnham and they're walking down that long hallway, which I will say nods to power saving mechanisms technology, but also a nod to some stuff we saw in season 3. He's talking to Burnham, and we're showing visuals on screen. It's early in the episode as Lorca's walking Burnham to the war room for the first time. Lorca says, "We're the tip of a spear on a science vessel filled with wide-eyed explorers." So even the way that the writers are setting up what this transition is, and the Star Trek that we know, and the love and the movement of science and discovery, everything Lorca is doing is telling us that's not what this is. These are the things that are happening, and he's not above, after that sickbay moment, playing the audio. The audio of Corvan 2 not only forced Stamets and Tilly to make new choices, but that's what I think pushed Landry. So I don't disagree that Lorca could have sent Landry in there, but I think the failure in the simulation and then into the Corvan 2 activated something in Landry to be like, I'm gonna big boss it and I'm gonna go get it. So I still have lots of questions, but I just want to throw that out there in terms of the chunkiness that I'm really loving about Discovery and what we're getting to see.
Oh, wow. These are some amazing observations. This is my curiosity. So I'm unsure what the story of gender is in Starfleet in this time period. Because, again, this is me coming from having watched all the Star Treks. So they carry the sort of gender assumptions of the time period they were made. So old school original Star Trek, you have Captain Pike being like, I don't feel comfortable having a woman on the bridge, except for you, number one. You're like a dude. And so I don't know what the deal is with female leadership, but I am interested in the Klingon story. So I see L'Rell doing some real soft power moves, like doing some real smart ways of staying out of the line of fire, but also doing some behind the scenes manipulation through all sorts of different things. And I kind of see this captain doing some manipulative stuff as well.
That's interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any last thoughts, Marie and Maya? We're about to go into spoiler zone, so I don't want to box y'all out, but I want to support all the. Yeah. Good. Okay.
Spoil away.
All right. So I'm seeing thumbs up in the visuals, and I want to just say thank you so much for this conversation of the four of us talking about season 1, episode 4. And for us, Thematix wouldn't be complete these days if we didn't go into the spoiler zone. And that sound tells us we're going to get into spoilers. So we're going to be able to talk about anything from episode 4 and onward. And if you are listening, you're going to turn down your volume for 2 minutes. And if you're watching, you're going to want to wait to see the green spoiler alert sign come back up. And for folks listening on the podcast you're going to want to watch that timer. So here we go. We'll wave our hands also in the visuals for folks who are getting ready. So when I say go, we're going to invite you to turn down your volume as we enter the spoiler zone. Get ready to go in 3, 2, 1, go.
Incoming transmission.
So
Go,
Homeless
Claudia.
McCoy is asking us, is this a rerun Trek table? So I've been jumping into the Twitch to be like, no, that's not what this is. But the spoiler zone, now we get to talk about everything.
Yes. So any particular things off the top of your head, Claudia, that you want to talk about in spoiler zone?
Well, can I just say, when I first saw this, I had all this headcanon for Landry, and then she kicked it, and now I'm so sad that she's gone. I just felt like there were all kinds of interesting things that could have happened with that character. But I'm now, like, is Marie psychic? Like, she's getting some real, like, I never even thought about the idea that the captain set up Landry on purpose. That was a really good guess.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just say, spoiler zone full effect. Landry's little goo-goo eyes at him in Prime Universe felt very much Landry goo-goo eyes in Mirror Universe. And she literally says to Lorca, I'll do anything you need. And she just does lusty eyes at him. And he's like, just go do your job. Because we know, and this is the thing for spoiler zone, because in Mirror Universe, we know that Lorca's all about Burnham. So I'm just having all these ew, this Lorca likes that Burnham. And how is this? And last week when he was all up on the Spore drive, not letting her out. So
Yeah, no, I see everything he's doing. Now I'm like seeing it through the lens of where is he grooming her? Where is he manipulating her? Because it feels like, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like the actor knew a lot of this ahead of time and is making some interesting choices.
And I definitely, I hear the nods when Lorca says, "Oh, this animal is like me. He's sensitive to light," and so I just thought about all those parallels of like this animal like me is in the wrong, like is in a different kind of context than it's bigger than it's supposed to be. Lorca's in a different piece, and I'll just say like I'm also aware that we're about to see this, Volk as son of none and Burnham as rank of none, and the parallel twist of their lives. So, yes. And there goes our time.
Transfer of data is complete.
All right. And that was our spoiler zone. And we're so grateful. Welcome back, Marie, Ren, Maya, and any listeners on the podcast, any viewers on our visual platforms, twitch.tv/outpost13 or outpost13.org. And we want to say thank you and welcome back. And those are our thoughts on Thematix for Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 4.
Yes! And now we are going to be heading into our final Trek Table question number 3. So you're going to hear a little bit of the track Holland Beccagonzo by the band Quetzal as we ponder this Trek question. Who would you back as the Klingon leader? L'Rell? Our female leader who's got some soft power stuff going on, Vok, he's so passionate, he's so loyal. Cole, he just came in, he's new to the game. Or Takuma, we're gonna pretend Takuma's still alive. Who would you choose?
Mira que regresa el maldito. Viene con las manos llenitas de piedra que no quiere arrojar.
All right, everyone. So our third question we posed to you was, who would you back as the leader of all of the Klingons? Would you be backing Takuma? Would you be backing L'Rell? Are you team Volk or are you team Cole? I'm going to start with I feel like we're all going to have the same answer. So I'm going to start with anyone. I'm going to start with Maya. What is your answer? I'm guessing, but I feel like we're all saying the same thing.
L'Rell is quite astute, as Vox says, and I love a leader who knows how to top from the bottom. That's what I got. Take it.
Okay, Dayla, who would you vote for out of all of these leaders?
I would vote for L'Rell because I like the Klingon behind the Klingon, but I'll take a leader who tops from the bottom.
Yes! Okay, Marie, how about you? Who would you vote for if the Klingons had a voting system?
Yeah, I would go with L'Rell. I really like L'Rell's style and in the way that she is able to do the things. I can't be as articulate as Maya right now.
Now, I'll be honest. I was actually deeply interested in an entire season where we followed a Takuma leadership role because Takuma was doing a thing with the Klingons. He was like pulling them together and like one leadership and houses not fighting each other. And Cole comes in. Cole's like, yeah, we're going to do that until we win. And then we're going to go back to just being split up. I was interested in that vision, but it feels like L'Rell has got it in spades, so I'm Team L'Rell too. All right, so who do we got? We got in the chat, L'Rell. Quote of the day, L'Rell, and someone saying, I arrived at the right moment. Yes, you did. Team L'Rell all the way, power from behind, and that was... Oh, and actually, we should take a look at the poll results. What's the poll results from our live digital audience in twitch.tv Outpost chat?
75% of our friends are saying L'Rell, so... Oh, and one person voted Volk, so good job, Volk. Volk got a vote.
Oh, he got a, I feel like it's a pity vote, but that's okay, Volk. We like you anyway. Well, thank you, everyone. That was our Trek Table question number 3, and those were all of our Trek Table questions for this Season 1, Episode 4.
All right, so So we are at the point of our show called Signal Boost, where we strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color. And here is where we want to share and amplify resources and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers.
The Trek Table believes that Black History Month is every month, but as February comes to an end, we want to amplify Black Girls Code. Their goal is to increase the number of women of color in digital space by empowering girls of color ages 7 to 17, become innovators in STEM fields, leaders in their communities, and builders of their own futures through exposure to computer science and technology. If you're looking for an organization to support with money or time or resources, we invite you to support blackgirlscode.com. The links are in the chat and in the episode notes.
And we also want to amplify CARAVANA, a digital art show mobilizing Central American art, March 10th through April 15th, with an opening, a digital art opening on March 11th. This will highlight and talk about Central American art from 1984 to the present. It's curated by the lovely and wonderful magical team of Fatima Ramirez, Mauricio Ramirez, Josue Rojas, and it's multidisciplinary, and it'll be a traveling exhibition that centers U.S. Central American artists living in California as well as across the United States to examine their lived experiences in relation to the impact of mass migration, family separation, and the legacy of political action and solidarity with the people of Central America. So make sure to catch out the live show, the links that are dropping on March 10th. Go to somarts.org/event/caravana. They're also on Instagram. Somarts is the host of this curation that they put together, and I'm also proud to be a poet, and I believe it'll be on March 11th. They're doing some talkbacks and a digital show, but I'm excited to see how it all works out as well.
Awesome. And we're so glad to amplify that event as well, because it does the intersection of Indigenous and Black and Brown women of color in the Central American community, as well as other allies in that world. So we just want to say thanks to Maya for helping us amplify that, and thanks Marie Wren. And just to say, if you're a watcher or a listener, and if you are a woman of color content creator, or you know someone who's doing some amazing work and you want us to help amplify what they are doing, feel free to send us a DM at the Trek Table on Instagram or at Trek Table 1 on Twitter, and we'll be able to signal boost for them. And that was our signal boost for Trek Table episode number 5. And we've reached the final thoughts of our show. We've had so many fun conversations, and I want to say thank you to everybody as we start to wrap up this week's episode. As is the case always, we want to invite hosts to have a final thought, and so I want to invite our birthday person to go first. Claudia, final thoughts of this episode.
I'm thinking about Michael Burnham and how Michael Burnham is on this road to redemption. And I'm thinking about how redemption is not only being having dominant culture say you're okay. It's about being okay with the world and okay with yourself. And at the end of this episode, she has collaborated in harming this animal, and I think she's feeling some type of way about being involved in something that she doesn't like. So I'm excited and interested to see where it goes.
Yes. Maya, can I invite you to go next, since you also just had a birthday, closing out our February birthdays? What is your final thought for this episode?
I'm loving this Pisces energy, and also I have a question. Why doesn't Star Trek have seatbelts? All that shaking around, those explosions, is it just so Stamets can hit his nose and get his face rearranged back into place by Dr. Culber?
All right. And next, I'll go next, and then Marie gets to close us out with final thoughts. My final thought for the day is just, I will say I also had some softy feelings about seeing Captain Georgiou. for some reason, that third time I rewatched it, I had a little wah wah. And I'll just say, I feel like at the end, when we hear Georgiou set up Burnham again, she says, don't just take care of yourself, but take care of the people in your care. And I have to say, it reminded me of moments of being a junior high or high school girl in Carson, California, where girls would sign my yearbook, take care, 'cause I care. And now I feel like Georgiou is saying, take care of the people in your care. So that's my new button. Yeah, I feel that all the time. So last but not least, I want to invite Marie Wren to go and give us your final thought. Marie, you're going to be off the show next week. So we want to send you off and have a great vacation from the show and say, what is your final thought for this episode?
Yeah, my final thought for this episode, I've been really thinking about this tardigrade a lot today, and so I'm just hoping that the Discovery crew gets to figure out how to work with the tardigrade a bit better. That does not involve cruelty and what looks like a traumatic, invasive kind of way to be able to travel through space in order, just kind of to think about the tardigrade a little bit better, and not just for their own purposes of travel. So,
and those are our final thoughts on Star Trek Discovery, episode 1, episode 4, season 1.
Thank you all for joining us for Trek Table today. Don't forget to sign up for our mailing list at trektablepodcast.com, and we'll enter you into an opportunity to win a Trek Table t-shirt. This opportunity closes at the end of February, which is today.
And you can feel free to support us on patreon.com/trektable.
Also, like and subscribe to us on Instagram or Facebook at TrekTable, or on Twitter at TrekTable1. Join our conversations there, and please comment using hashtags #TrekTable, #BIBWOCTrek, and #Star Trek Discovery.
And now Trek Table, the podcast, not the podcasts as I sometimes type, is now available through Spotify, Libsyn, and other podcast apps.
So we want to say thanks to everybody. More podcast locations will be coming. Video archives will be available soon. We're so glad that you joined us today as we talked about Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 4. We were holding Trek space for pacifist scientists like Stamets who don't want their research used for war purposes. For essential workers like the tardigrade who we can't go places or get things without them. We're holding Trek space for the anxiety and the awe around science and healing in this time of pandemic. And we're holding Trek space for artists and scientists whose work is being used for war, and leaders who are holding space for folks. We want to say thank you to the Trek Table production team, executive producers Alison Dela Cruz and Luz Jadewala, co-producer Arthur Wong, and production coordinator Brendan Chang, artist coordinator Terry Hashimoto, social media manager Isil Borlasa, stage manager Ariana Michelle.
Deep gratitude and thanks to Outpost 13 and their parent organization Outside In Theater, with extra thanks to Jessica, Paul, Matt, Arlo, and Alex. Thanks also to Geekish Network, our exclusive partner on Clubhouse. Thanks to Francis Collado and Visual Communications, and thanks to all of our friends across the Star Trek universes.
And finally, the deepest thank you to you folks joining us on outpost13.org or live on twitch.tv/outpost13 chat, or those of you listening to the podcast. Thanks for showing up for a conversation centering women of color in Trek.
And Trek Table is a service mark of De La Projects LLC.
I want to say thank you to the band Quetzal for all of your amazing music, and thanks to all of you. Thank you for coming to the Trek Table. So let's close this ritual for today. I'm going to invite you to plant your feet flat on the floor one more time and take a closing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. We look forward to holding Trek space for you again soon. Have a great week. Be well.